The opposition is trying to take apart the Modi growth story, but to present the perspective from within, to talk about whether Achhe Din are indeed here, the achievements of the last 5 years, hopefully some blind spots as well, and to talk about the plan from here. We're joined by one of the most important voices of the Modi Sarkar, Piyush Goyal, currently Railways Minister. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us at the India Today Conclave. We meet in the immediate aftermath of Pulwama. As a man who's seen by many as a face for India when it comes to global corporations, international interests, trying to attract investment into India, are you concerned that a message has gone out that India is a nuclear flashpoint? Does this impact how global companies perceive and consider their investments in the India story?
This is typically the kind of weak narrative that some opposition leaders and including some media anchors, particularly on television, have tried to project in the last few days. And I feel it's deplorable and it's extremely sad. I think this is the time the nation has to be proud that we finally have a leadership which is willing to bite the bullet. We finally have a situation where the country is in safe hands. We finally have a situation where the armed forces are given a free hand to give a rejoinder the way it should have been done for the last 30 years. We finally have a leadership which is not going to buckle under anybody's pressure, domestic or international. We finally have the army standing up and facing adverse circumstances, one-on-one, eye-to-eye, taking it on the chin and giving it back 10 times over. It's a time to rejoice. It's a time to be proud of this country. And I wish these apologists who are trying to whittle this down to a international story, a nuclear flashpoint and all of that, would understand the world only recognizes strength. Nobody recognizes a weak leadership, a weak country. It is because today India is a strong country. It is because India today is a strong economy. It is because India has a strong leadership that we are recognized in the world as a power, as a powerful nation, and therefore we've been able to get the world to rally behind India even at this stage.
So as of now, there are two different narratives that are at play. One is that we struck with immense precision, we did significant damage, numbers to the tune of 300, 400 terrorists being killed are being bandied about. The Air Force itself hasn't confirmed. International media is being taken to the zone where the missiles fell. They're saying only one person was injured, that the missiles that we threw fell into open forest. Do you believe this then puts some pressure on India to convince the world and the public and the opposition that yes, indeed, the mission was successful?
No, are you convinced first?
So I believe...
No, I mean,
I'll answer
are you a part of this narrative that is trying to belittle our armed forces? Are you, any of you in this room, subscribing to what Rahul Kanwar here is saying, trying to belittle our Indian armed forces
so, Minister,
and trying to prove them that they are lying? Is that what your intention is, Rahul?
Absolutely not. Let me just clarify.
I wonder where this world is, where this country is going if you're going to have this kind of thinking also, that you're going to accept what Pakistan says and colleagues of yours are going to propagate the Pakistan theory in India. I think it's a matter of shame.
Minister, my job as a journalist is to ask a question, and the fact is...
Are you questioning our armed forces and what they have said?
Sir,
I have no answer. I have not been there. I was not the pilot who was firing at Pakistan. I was not the pilot who was taking revenge. But if you have any questions and you suspect that our armed forces have not done their job right, I actually feel that it's a very, very sorry position for a senior journalist like you, coming from a very reputed media house where I'm sitting here today, even willing to consider that kind of a narrative.
Minister, I'm an army officer's son. I grew up in the midst of a lot of olive.
And I believe your father must have always said the truth.
My father is one of India's foremost military experts. I need no lesson
so
on
are all those,
and
so are all those people who attacked Pakistan,
Minister,
who went across the line of control and protected India's unity and integrity.
Minister, neither me nor anybody else sitting here needs any lesson in nationalism and patriotism. from you or from anybody else. And this is not a simplistic binary. It's not as if we don't believe you, we are anti-national.
Not me. It's
No,
the
we're
Army
not.
and the Air Force.
No, it's
I
not.
have not said anything.
Sir, the Army and the Air Force haven't said anything. They haven't said that they took down 300, 400 targets. We had Sambit Patra from the BJP first say 300, then he said 400. I am now beginning to wonder whether there is need to demonstrate evidence. That's the question. Nobody is questioning the army. A question to a BJP minister doesn't become a question to the Indian Army minister.
It is a question to the Indian Armed Forces because A, the Armed Forces didn't go down there on the ground and count the number. Obviously not. The Armed Forces also would have gone by the credible evidence that they could have gotten from intelligence. After all, how did one pinpoint that place? How was that place selected? How did they come to know that there is a terrorist camp there? Obviously from intelligence inputs. It's a collective effort of intelligence, the armed forces, all of them working in tandem. And if at all there was no damage, then tell me one thing, why is Pakistan panicking so much? Why is Pakistan sending their Air Force to try and attack and enter into Indian territory? If there was absolutely nothing there, if nothing had gone wrong, if nothing had happened, all Pakistan had to do was to deny it and sit quiet. Why did they have to try and attack Indian territory, which we retaliated with full force successfully? So I think the time today is one where the nation thinks in one voice. The nation shows to the whole world that nobody can touch a single inch of territory in India. We are not going to tolerate terrorism. And the nation as one is going to retaliate, fight for every single person that they try to harm in India. We have the capacity to harm 10 of theirs.
Minister, do you believe that Pulwama, the aerial strikes in Balakot, will be one of the important issues in the general election that we build up to? National security, internal security. Is this at all going to be...
I don't think that's an issue at all. I have consistently held the view, and I think even on your channel and with you, that we have been working piously for the last 5 years to serve the people of India. We've given an honest government to this nation, which this country wanted for years and years. We've given development like never before, at a pace this country had never seen before. We've taken the fruits of development to the last man at the bottom of the pyramid, again like never before. And I think it's the people of India who have benefited, who know what is right for them. ये जनता, ये देश की जनता बड़ी समझदार है, अच्छी तरह समझती है उनका हित किस में है. और मैंने तो consistently कहा है, 6 महीने पहले मेरा पहला पोल आया था, उसके बाद ट्रैकिंग पोल अब ख़त्म ही हुआ है, थोड़े दिनों में आएगा. वो भी figures are prior to this unfortunate incident in Pulwama. But all said and done, I think we are going to the people on the work that we have done for 5 years, also with a strong, decisive leadership in whose hands this country is safe.
In fact, all the tracking poll that the Bharatiya Janata Party comes, all that data comes to you. Would you like to share with us at the India Today Conclave, Minister, what your current tracking data reveals? We put out the political stock exchange, we put out the mood of the nation. I'm very curious to know what your tracking poll suggests.
See, very clearly, I don't have the latest tracking numbers. We are expecting them very soon. I have already shared that the last poll that we did, 540,000 respondents. 540,000 respondents, physical interview, probably half an hour or so, on tap, so that we can ensure the latitude, longitude, the location, because we give out the names based on a very scientific methodology, which has been devised by our psephologists, not the party psephologists, the professionals. And that happened somewhere September, October. And we got the findings, I think, in November or thereabouts. Very clearly at that point of time, they were showing us at about 297 to 303, the BJP alone. Our alliances were at that point of time not yet frozen. So AIA, DMK was not there, Shiv Sena was not there. But if we assumed some of these alliances, we were looking at about a 2/3 majority at that point of time. Subsequent to that, we've had a second poll, not as large as this, but then it has a methodology, the tracking methodology, which will be out very soon with me. Let's see what those numbers say, but prima facie, I'm told the numbers aren't any worse. We are still at a absolute majority for the BJP. A few seats here and there, but the final figures is just still being extrapolated. This also pertains to a period which is at least a month behind, because now we'll get the reports. The latest round has started about 15-20 days back, after the budget. After the budget, and then this, these developments, all of these will get reflected in further polls. But to my mind,
but you'd assume a bump.
To my mind, this issue is about national security and national unity and integrity. It is not something that has any, for us at least, it has nothing to do with a poll or no poll. For us, this issue is condemnable, and India will stand up against terrorism and any effort to attack this country's sovereignty, its unity and integrity, with the strongest and every possible strength at our command. We are not a leadership which post Mumbai 2008 did not allow our armed forces, which had the capability to retaliate even then. And I think this came out from some independent people. We are not saying it. I read it on social media. Independent people who were involved in government at that point of time.
Air Chief Marshal Fali Homi Major.
Saying in 2008, we had the capability to retaliate, but the then weak leadership of the Congress party did not allow us to retaliate.
No, so all international data trends, and since you study data very well, suggest that whenever there is an external aggression, a threat to the country, it tends to benefit governments that are strong on nationalism and security. So you're assuming that post what's happened at Balakot, there will be an even bigger bump in the tracking data that you're putting out?
Are you looking for a headline?
I'm asking a question. I'm never looking for a headline.
I think it's not material. Right now, the nation stands behind our armed forces, stands behind our Prime Minister. He has demonstrated that the country is safe in Prime Minister Modi's hand. And I think it's a time where almost across the country, people are standing behind him and supporting his efforts to ensure this country is safe for our people.
I think the minister is completely in election mode, fully charged up. He's decided that if I ask a question which may lead to a positive statement from him, there must be a punch thrown then.
Sorry, Rahul.
If I ask a question which may lead to some concerns and we need to suspend disbelief, he wants to throw two punches then. So
sorry,
we're in
Rahul,
election mode then.
Rahul, it's not the first time that I've come on your show. Sure. And each one of them have been equally exciting, if I may say.
Absolutely, and that's the whole idea, that there must be combat, not just in the skies, on the ground as well, and I'm glad you're taking these questions. Now, we had lots of economists critique over the last 40 minutes what the government has done and not done, and the one issue that came up again and again, Minister, is the issue of jobs. Now, we've seen some, we haven't seen the official government data, but we've seen some data points, and I want to quote them to you once and then get your response on them. The Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy has said that 11 million jobs were lost in 2018. This NSSO survey says that unemployment rate is at a 4-decade high at 6.1% in 2017-18. Then the EPFO data, which the government likes to cite so often, has suggested that there's a 13.3% cut in monthly job creation from about 6 lakh coming down to about 4.9 lakhs. Are these data points of concern to you, Minister?
Well, let's analyze each one of what you said. The first one you referred to is CMI. CMI started collecting some data only in 2016. So there's really no reference point before that. In any case, the antecedents of the agency doing the data also should be studied before we rely too much on any particular agency or organization. So I personally don't even look at the CMI data. I don't even believe that data has any base to stand on. They just started compiling data. Anybody who understands data knows that data comes over a long period of time. Data has to be sanitized. And over a period of time, data has to reorient itself to be relevant to contemporary times, right? Which is why the data on GDP very often, every 10 years, I think they in any case recalibrate the method of collecting data and the different elements of data that go into it. In the same way, jobs so far has had only one data, the NSSO data, which came once in 5 years, and by the time the report would come, 2 or 3 years more had gone by. So it was data that really had no resonance with the ground reality. I would like to ask anybody in this room, who would agree that, say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, even 15 years ago, India's unemployment was at 2%. Does anybody in this room agree that India's unemployment was at 2%?
Oh, you
any one hand?
Two hands going up.
So
there.
two hands go up who agree in such a large room that India's unemployment was at 2%. That only validates my point number 1, which I responded to. But in any case, 2% is what the data used to show. The reality was we've never been able to get data, robust data, to understand what the situation is. I'll tell you a similar situation I had in the railways. Every time I went out after I became a rail minister, wherever I went, including on your shows, punctuality was an issue people would always ask me about. Trains are always late. Is that right? Every time I sat on reviews in my ministry with all the zones, everybody was out there to tell me 85%, 90%, some zones reporting 98%. What do? My data shows that. The reality is what you saw in the room just now. Here, got into the root cause analysis, and I've shared with you my working with the 10 principles or 10 ideas of governance or business practices. So I did my root cause analysis, and lo and behold, what do you find? The whole damn data was wrong. The data was compiled by the station masters, logged on onto a system, and not necessarily accurate. Now, I don't want to allege anything on my railway officers because this was what was happening for the last 160 years and continuing merrily. What did we do? We sorted out the problem first. I don't believe you can go to a doctor and tell him that you've got a headache when your real problem was a knee ache. Or if he lands up giving you change in your heart, changes your stents in your, or puts in some stents in your heart, when all he needed to do was replace your knee, you're going to be in trouble. So we got down to putting data loggers at various at the interjoints, or wherever the rail tracks would have a junction point. And we only put 96 data loggers first. Now, of course, it's ramped up to much larger numbers so that we can get more and more accuracy. We only put 96 data loggers. And lo and behold, 31st March punctuality number on 1st April fell by 20%. 20% fall in punctuality in one day. 31st March to 1st April, when we switched on the data loggers and got the right data. Because now it was computer, as the train passed, the data logger was feeding data, and the station masters knew they couldn't fudge. 20, 30 kilometers ahead, there would be a data logger, which would give the accurate data. 20% fall. Once the doctor knew the problem, June and July, I spent 2 months rigorously working with the 17 zones to work out solutions zone-wise. There's no one-size-fits-all. And I'm happy to report to you, we got 2 benefits. One, 6 months later, our punctuality is back to what the fudge data was prior to March as an aggregate in terms of the train's punctuality or how many zones the trains are getting delayed in. But the good news is the number of minutes lost, which is a multiplication of the delay and multiplied by the trains, has come down to 1/3. So trains which are 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours late, if at all they get late, are down to 1 hour, 1.5 hours. And that also is because earlier governments did not invest in the rail infrastructure like they should have. So we've seen growth in passenger and freight traffic of about 14 to 1600% in the last 50 years, whereas rail infrastructure has gone up only 30%. 14 to 1600% demand growth, infrastructure 30%. So obviously,
Minister, with a lot of respect, I'm glad you're fixing
so obviously,
railway data, but how
unless
does this
the
answer the
data is
job?
right, and that is what NSSO is trying to take quarterly data, come out with more robust numbers, assess what is the other economy, the new emerging economy which is not reflected in that data, what's happening in the Ubers, what's happening in the Olas, what's happening in the startup economy, what's Mudra loan doing to jobs. I mean, Adi Godrej just few days back said, You don't get people for the job that you want. So there's a disconnect.
Can I just, with a lot of respect, you're a chartered accountant, you understand data much better than I.
Otherwise, you don't respect me.
No. Let me just ask my question, sir. My question is this. Yes, the CBSE report card does not adequately reflect the learnings of a student, and we should improve the manner in which CBSE does its markings. While we work on those improvements, we cannot hold back CBSE report cards. There is a certain system that's been followed for good or for bad through the NSS. So over the years, yes, there are limitations in the way labor data is aggregated. While you work towards fixing it, you can't stop the report card because you don't like what the report card says.
It's being evaluated. It's under evaluation. So if you get a wrong CBSE report card, so you send it for re-evaluation, right? Don't you do that?